So here's a question. Ever thought about it? What does it take to be the Chief Justice? Would you want to be the Chief Justice if you had the chance? Well, in 2 months from now, it is Chief Justice Mogoeng Mogoeng who's going to finish his tenure. It's going to leave the vacancy open. So as far as successors are concerned, how are they selected? What qualities are needed to be the holder of this incredibly high office? Luckily, we have experts on this, like the Executive Secretary of the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution. It's Lawson Naidoo. Hello to you, Lawson. So I'm third-year law. Do I get a shot at this? Can I be Chief Justice?
Good morning, Gareth, and thank you very much. Look, the position of Chief Justice is the head of one of the three arms of state, the others being the government, where the president is the head, and the legislature, where the Speaker and the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces are the head of the legislative branch. So this is an incredibly important position that needs to be filled within the next few weeks in South Africa. And the Chief Justice is not just the head of the Constitutional Court, the highest court that we have in South Africa, but he or she is also the head of what is called the Office of the Chief Justice. And that has now been established as a government department, effectively, with control over the management and the running of the higher courts in South Africa, the High Court, the Supreme Court of Appeal, as well as the Constitutional Court. So there's, in addition to being a jurist of sound intellect and someone who commands the respect of their peers within the judiciary, they need to have quite extensive administrative and managerial capabilities in order to run the office of the Chief Justice.
So I'm guessing third-year law student probably isn't what we are looking for at the moment. Then we'll give it a few more years, Lawson. So, but now with that change of office, and I'm glad you're talking about that change, and let's call it a reporting line, if you will, even though we're talking about separation of powers. What does that mean now for the incoming Chief Justice? Does it change anything day to day? What do you make of that? What does it mean, really?
Well, this new system with the Office of the Chief Justice has been with us for some time now. It's still, probably best described as a work in progress, because the division of responsibilities between the Office of the Chief Justice and the Department of Justice that retains control over the magistrates' courts and so on is still something that needs to be ironed out in more detail. But, ultimately, I think the issue here really is the reputation and the status of the judiciary in South Africa. As we know, the judiciary and judges have come under a quite intense political criticism in recent times, people leveling unsubstantiated allegations against the judiciary for being complicit in factionalism within political parties and even in corruption. But as I say, without a shred of evidence to support that. And the head of the judiciary needs to speak up for the judiciary and restore public confidence in the role of the courts and of judges, and ultimately, the preeminence of the rule of law within our society. Because if we begin to undermine the courts and the court system, we begin to undermine the rule of law. So whoever comes in has got a significant job to do to restore confidence and to assure South Africans that judges decide matters on the basis of facts and law before them and not on any extraneous factors.
Lawson, last minute and a half or so with you, and I'm so glad you brought up the phrase speaking up and speaking out against corruption and upholding the rule of law. If I could just ask about this speaking up. We know that the now outgoing Chief Justice Mogoeng Mogoeng has come under fire a couple of times for comments he made as the Chief Justice, but views of his own. There is almost a case of there's no real separation of powers between personal opinion and the Chief Justice and what he represents as well. I mean, is that unfair? Would the new Chief Justice have to be very careful about what they say in public, or could it be seen to be, again, that's the view of the court? Last question to you.
Well, it's a question that really reflects on what it is that the Chief Justice speaks about. If it's about issues that concern the functioning of the judiciary, the independence of the judiciary, the role and nature of our constitution within South Africa, and matters that can be seen as being related to the functioning of the office of the Chief Justice, then the Chief Justice must be able to freely speak out on those issues. But when it gets beyond that into what I would call the political terrain, the issue of government policy, for example, taking the example of the outgoing Chief Justice Mogoeng Mogoeng, when he speaks about South Africa's foreign policy as regards Palestine and Israel, that is straying out of his lane and is something that has rightly been condemned by his peers within the Judicial Service Commission. And unfortunately, the Chief Justice has decided not to apologize and is stringing this matter out. And ultimately, his legacy will be one of a Chief Justice who did not respect the processes of the institutions that he himself heads, the Judicial Service Commission, and some would say has contributed to undermining confidence in the judiciary. So the new Chief Justice is going to have to rebuild those levels of trust and demonstrate that he or she is above party politics and will implement the Constitution and the law without fear or favor.
Lawson Naidoo, always a pleasure to have you with us here on eNCA. It's Executive Secretary for the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, Lawson Naidoo.